Father, this morning I come before you with a mind that may already be farther ahead than my feet. The day has only begun, and yet there are things I am already thinking about, conversations I have not had, decisions I have not made, responsibilities that have not arrived, and possibilities I cannot yet see clearly. Before anything has happened, my mind can begin preparing for what might happen. I can wake up carrying questions that have no answers yet, imagining outcomes that have not taken shape, and feeling the weight of things that belong to later, while I am still standing in the beginning of today. Lord, you know what is occupying me right now. You know the concerns I have spoken aloud and the ones I have kept quietly to myself. You know the thoughts that return when everything becomes still, the situations I keep turning over in my mind, and the uncertainty that makes me want to look farther ahead than I am able to see. I do not want to pretend that I am already peaceful when my heart is still unsettled. I do not want to hide what is difficult simply because I am coming to you in prayer. So I bring it honestly before you. Your word teaches me not to carry these concerns alone, but to bring my requests before you, trusting that you hear what weighs upon my heart. So here I am, Lord. I bring you the questions I cannot answer yet. I bring you the circumstances I cannot resolve this morning. I bring you the conversations that have not happened, the outcomes I cannot predict, and the things that are completely outside my control. I do not need to make them sound smaller than they feel, and I do not need to make them larger than they are. You already know them. And as I place these things before you, help me become aware of what is happening within me. Some of what feels heavy may not be coming from something happening right now. Some of it may be coming from the way my mind has already traveled into what has not happened yet. I may be standing in this morning while emotionally living inside possibilities that belong to another hour, another conversation, another decision, another day. So, Father, let me slow down enough to notice where I am. Let me receive this moment instead of rushing past it in my thoughts. The future is not here yet. This morning is, and you are here with me in it. Father, as I become still before you, I begin to see that some of the weight I have been feeling is not only coming from what is actually happening. Some of it is coming from what I have already imagined happening. My mind can take a conversation that has not occurred and live through it as though it has. It can take a decision that has not yet arrived and begin worrying about its consequences. It can imagine disappointment before there has been a reason to grieve, rehearse failure before anything has been lost, and carry responsibilities that belong to a future I have not yet reached. Lord, sometimes I call this preparation, but you know the difference between preparing wisely and trying to control what cannot yet be controlled. There is a kind of thinking that helps me act faithfully when the moment comes, and there is another kind that simply keeps me emotionally living inside possibilities. I can replay every scenario, consider every response, and imagine every outcome, yet still remain no closer to knowing what tomorrow will bring. My thoughts may feel productive because they are busy, but busyness of mind is not the same as wisdom. Your word reminds me that I do not know what tomorrow will bring, and that my life is not something I can completely map out in advance. That truth can be uncomfortable, Lord, because part of me wants certainty. I want to know how the conversation will go before I enter it. I want to know whether the decision will work before I make it. I want to know what another person will choose before they choose it. I want to know whether the thing I fear will happen so that I can somehow prepare myself against it. But I see now that knowing every possibility would not necessarily give me peace. I could simply find another possibility to worry about. I could keep moving farther into the future, trying to arrive at certainty before the future arrives itself. And in doing that, I would spend today's strength on circumstances that do not yet belong to today. Father, teach me to recognize this difference without condemning myself for it. There are things I can prepare for, things I can responsibly consider, and things I can faithfully address when they actually arrive. But I do not need to emotionally possess every possible outcome simply because I can imagine it. Help me notice when my mind has crossed that line. When preparation quietly becomes control, remind me that I am trying to hold something that was never placed completely in my hands. When I begin rehearsing a future as though it has already happened, gently bring me back to what is true now. I do not know everything that tomorrow will contain. I do not need to pretend that I do. And perhaps, Lord, recognizing that limitation is not another burden to carry. Perhaps it is the beginning of laying one down. Father, I see more clearly now what I have been trying to do. I have been looking for a kind of certainty that you have never asked me to possess. I have wanted to know what will happen before I step into it, to understand how everything will unfold before I allow myself to rest. I have treated understanding as though it were the doorway to peace, as though I could finally loosen my grip once I had enough information, enough answers, enough assurance that things would turn out the way I hoped. But I bring that demand before you now. Lord, I do not want to spend this day trying to force certainty out of circumstances that cannot give it to me. I release the need to know every outcome before it arrives. I release the conversations I have already rehearsed in my mind, the responses I have imagined from other people, the possibilities I have tried to prepare myself for, and the questions that have no answer yet. I release the pressure to solve tomorrow before tomorrow comes. Some things may remain unresolved today. Some questions may remain open longer than I would like. Some people may make choices I cannot anticipate, and some circumstances may develop in ways I cannot see from where I stand now. I confess that this uncertainty can make me want to take control wherever I can find it. But I do not want to build my peace upon an illusion of control. Your word tells me to trust you, rather than lean entirely upon my own understanding. So teach me what that trust looks like here, in this very place where I do not understand everything. I do not have to know the entire path before taking the next faithful step. I do not have to understand every reason before I can trust your character. I do not have to predict another person's response before I can choose how I will respond. I do not have to rehearse every possible disappointment before it happens in order to survive it. Father, I surrender the belief that knowing more will always make me feel safe. I surrender the expectation that I must mentally solve every uncertainty before I can rest. I surrender the outcomes I have already imagined, including the ones I fear and the ones I desperately hope for. I surrender the future conversations, the unanswered questions, the circumstances I cannot influence. and the parts of this day that have not yet revealed themselves. Not because these things do not matter, but because they matter too much for me to pretend that I can carry them by myself. Teach my heart that surrender is not giving up. It is refusing to carry what I was never meant to control. It is making room for trust where my demand for certainty has been living. And when my mind reaches forward again, when I feel that familiar pull to predict, rehearse, calculate, and prepare for every possible outcome, remind me gently that I have already brought this to you. I do not need to take it back, simply because uncertainty remains. Lord, I may still have questions when this prayer ends. I may still not know how certain things will unfold. But I do not want my lack of knowledge to become a reason to live ahead of my life. I choose to trust you without requiring a complete explanation first. And as I release what I cannot know, help me remember this. I am not releasing it into emptiness. I am placing it into the hands of the one who already sees what I cannot see. Father, if I do not have to know what tomorrow will bring, then teach my heart where it can rest while tomorrow remains unknown. I have spent so much energy looking ahead, trying to understand what I cannot yet see, trying to prepare myself for every possibility before it has even become real. But you are not standing at the edge of the future, trying to discover what is there. You already see what I cannot see. You know the things that are still hidden from me, the conversations that have not happened, the decisions that have not yet arrived, the circumstances I cannot anticipate, and the people whose choices I cannot control. Nothing that is unknown to me is unknown to you. And that changes the way I can hold this day. I do not need a prediction from you before I can trust you. I do not need to know that a particular conversation will go the way I hope, or that every problem will resolve according to my preference, before I can believe that you are still caring for me. I do not need an explanation for every uncertainty before I can place myself in your hands. Your care is not dependent upon my ability to see the outcome. Your faithfulness is not measured by how quickly you remove every unanswered question. Your word reminds me not to live consumed by what I will eat or drink, what I will wear, or what tomorrow may require, because my Heavenly Father knows what I need. You see what I need before I know how to name it. You know the weight I am carrying, even when I cannot explain why a particular possibility has become so frightening to me. You know the difference between what truly requires my attention and what my mind has simply decided to rehearse. And because you know, I can loosen my grip. Father, let me rest in your care, without turning that rest into a demand for a guaranteed outcome. I do not want to say that I trust you only if the future unfolds exactly as I hope. I want a deeper trust than that. I want to know that you remain worthy of trust, even while I am waiting, even while I am uncertain, even while I cannot yet understand what you may be doing. Give me the quiet confidence to leave unanswered things unanswered for now. There are matters I would still like to understand. There are outcomes I would still prefer to control. There are situations I wish you would settle before I have to face them. But I do not want my peace to depend upon receiving that prediction. You know the whole story while I can see only this moment. You know where the road turns while I can see only the step in front of me. So let your knowledge become the place where my limited knowledge can rest. And perhaps this is what I need this morning. not an answer for everything, but the freedom to stop demanding one. You are already present in the places I am afraid to enter mentally. You are already there in the future I cannot see. So I can leave what I cannot see with you, trusting that I do not have to carry tomorrow, simply because you already know it. And as I release the need for a prediction, make my heart ready to receive the portion of grace you have given for this day. Father, because I can leave tomorrow in your hands, help me receive what you have actually placed before me today. I do not want to spend this day preparing emotionally for 10 different versions of a future that may never come. I want to be present for the people you have placed in front of me, attentive to the responsibilities that genuinely belong to this day, and willing to take the next faithful step without demanding to see the whole road first. Give me grace for what today asks of me. If there is a conversation I need to have, help me meet it with patience rather than rehearsing every possible response beforehand. If there is a decision that truly belongs to today, give me the wisdom to face it when the time comes, rather than exhausting myself with possibilities before I need to choose. If there is work that needs to be done, let me do it, faithfully, without turning today's responsibility into a demand to control tomorrow's result. And if someone else's response remains outside my hands, teach me to leave that part where it belongs. Lord, help me understand that trusting you with tomorrow does not mean neglecting today. Faith does not ask me to become passive. It asks me to become faithful. There is a difference between carrying responsibility and carrying control. I can do what is mine to do, without pretending that the final outcome is mine to determine. Your words in Matthew remind me that tomorrow will have its own concerns. That truth is not a rejection of tomorrow. It is an invitation to stop borrowing its burden before its time. Today has enough in it for me to receive. There is enough grace for this moment, enough strength for the responsibility in front of me, enough wisdom for the decision that genuinely needs to be made now. I do not need to possess tomorrow's strength while I am still standing in today's moment. So slow me down when my thoughts begin racing ahead. When I notice myself mentally living through conversations that have not happened, outcomes that do not yet exist, or problems that have not yet arrived, bring me gently back to what is real. Not because those things are unimportant, but because they are not mine to live through yet. Let me receive this day as it is. Let me notice the ordinary things I might otherwise miss because my mind is somewhere else. Let me listen when someone speaks. Let me work when work is before me. Let me rest when rest is needed. Let me pray when I need your help. Let me take one faithful step without requiring that step to reveal the entire destination. And when I am tempted to think that being prepared means mentally carrying everything in advance, remind me that I can prepare without possessing the future. I can be responsible without being consumed. I can be attentive without becoming afraid. I can be faithful without knowing how the story ends. Tomorrow will come when it comes. For now, Father, give me the grace to receive today fully, trusting that when tomorrow arrives, you will still be there, and I will meet it with you. Father, I know that uncertainty may return during this day. A message may come that I did not expect. A conversation may become difficult. Something I thought was settled may become unclear again, and my mind may begin running ahead, trying once more to understand what could happen next. When that happens, Remind me that the return of uncertainty does not mean that I have failed to trust you. It simply gives me another opportunity to return to you. When my thoughts begin reaching for control again, help me notice it before I become consumed by it. When I start rehearsing every possible outcome, bring me back from the future. I'm imagining into the moment that is actually here. I do not need to finish every scenario in my mind. I do not need to answer questions that have not yet been asked. I do not need to carry another person's choices as though they belong to me. Teach me to return rather than wrestle. When fear rises again, let my first movement be toward you. When I feel the old pressure to know what comes next, let me remember that your presence has not changed simply because my circumstances have become uncertain again. You are still God when I understand, and you are still God when I do not. You remain present when the path is clear, and you remain present when I cannot see beyond the next step. Your word tells me to be still and know that you are God. Let that truth become something I can return to throughout this day, not as a way of escaping responsibility, but as a way of remembering who is responsible for what I cannot control. Stillness does not mean that nothing is happening. It means I do not have to respond to every uncertainty by taking control. And when I find myself becoming restless again, give me grace to begin again without condemning myself. I do not need to maintain a perfect feeling of peace from this moment forward. I only need to keep returning my heart to you. If the future begins occupying my thoughts again, I can bring it back to you again. If I begin carrying an outcome that does not belong to me, I can place it back into your hands again. Let this become a quiet rhythm within me throughout the day. Uncertainty comes, and I return to you. Fear rises, and I remember your care. My mind races ahead, and I come back to what is actually before me. I do not have to defeat every anxious thought. I do not have to predict every possibility. I can remain with you in this moment and trust you with the moments I cannot yet see. So when tomorrow tries to enter my heart again before its time, gently remind me that I have already entrusted it to you. And with that trust, help me turn once more toward the day that is actually here. Father, as I enter this day, I do not want to demand that I understand the whole story before I am willing to live this part of it. There are still questions I cannot answer. There are things I cannot see yet, decisions whose outcomes remain unknown, and circumstances that may unfold in ways I cannot predict. I bring all of that before you without needing to force an answer from it this morning. Thank you for this day as it is, not as I imagined it would be, and not as I fear it might become. Thank you that I do not have to enter it alone, and that I do not have to carry every possibility simply because I can imagine it. You know what is ahead. You know what I cannot know. You know what will require courage, what will require patience, what will require wisdom, and what may simply require me to wait. Give me grace to meet each thing when it actually arrives. Keep my heart from running ahead of my life. When something uncertain appears, let me respond to what is real rather than to every possibility my mind can create. When I need to act, give me courage to act. When I need to wait, give me patience to wait. When I need to speak, give me the right spirit. When I need to remain quiet, keep me from filling the silence with fear. I do not need to know everything that tomorrow holds in order to trust you with today. Let that truth settle more deeply than my need for certainty. I can trust you without having a complete explanation. I can be faithful without knowing the final outcome. I can receive today's responsibilities without borrowing tomorrow's burden. And if I forget this later, bring me back gently. If I begin carrying what I have already entrusted to you, remind me that your hands are steadier than mine. If uncertainty becomes loud again, let me return to the quiet confidence that you are already present in what I cannot see. Father, I place this day before you with open hands. I do not know everything that it will contain, but I do not need to. I ask only for the grace to receive what comes, the wisdom to recognize what belongs to me, the courage to be faithful in it, and the humility to leave what is beyond me in your care. The future can remain unknown. I can still be at peace. Tomorrow can remain unwritten. I can still live faithfully today. So lead me into this day, not with the certainty of knowing how everything will unfold, but with the quiet confidence that I do not have to know the entire story to trust the one who does. Amen.